I gave up bragging for Lent. It's not going very well. But, if you put yourselves in my shoes, I get to come to work every day at this great institution working with people like Professor Karen Porter and Professor Winnie Taylor, the Honorable Professor Russo, and all the rest, and all our great students. And it's really a remarkable thing that goes on. And one of the things that we have going for us is our close collaboration with the New York State Bar Association. And emblematic of that relationship is what we've been doing, our health center working together with the New York State Bar Association. Tonight's program is very timely, it's very exciting. It is one of the reasons why I'm so optimistic about the future of legal education and the profession and practice, that there's new fields, new challenges, where new lawyers can actually not only do well, but do good. And it's also fields that are new. The board has been kind of largely erased, and so you have the ability to get in this field and have a career of 20, 30, 40 years where you're at the forefront, and there's nobody that knows any more than you because you're kind of right at the start where it's all happening. So with that, I'm very pleased we have such good attendance tonight, that you're here. This time of year, some of you, the students realize this, we have 4, 5, 6 events a night, so I'm going to run off. I've got 2 more. I'm going to go. It's like hot bunks in the movie Das Boot. We just kind of keep rolling the shifts through. But I know you're in good hands, and I'd like Lisa to have a few words from the New York State Bar Association. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much for having us. Thank you, Dean Allard. My name is Lisa Hayes. I'm Associate General Counsel of Brookdale Medical Center, and I am chair of the Diversity Committee of the Health Section of the State Bar Association. And about 5 years ago, 6 years ago, the State Bar Association challenged its sections to develop strategies to increase diversity within its ranks. And the health section set out to develop a health fellowship program that would be designed to bring more diversity to the health careers. And one of the things that we did immediately was to identify institutions that would house and encourage young people interested in going into this field. And we acquired a secret partner at that time. And that partner was the Center for Health Science and Public Policy under the leadership of Karen Porter. And we want to thank her for that, because they have been our partners from the very beginning. The very first student that came through the Health Law Fellowship of the State Bar Association was from right here, Brooklyn Law School. Is Omar here? Hey, Omar. Oh, Omar, please stand up. Omar is our current 2016 Health Law Fellow and will be at Montefiore Medical Center this summer. And so this is our 5th year, and just last year we have become more of a permanent presence with the State Bar Association, because we have become affiliated with the Bar Foundation of the state of New York, along with a number of other fellowship programs, and we're very proud of that. I would like to, again, thank, Dean Allard has left, but I just want to publicly thank Brooklyn Law School for housing us and for inviting us to come and discuss these issues. And we are going to have a great time tonight. We have a wonderful panel, And we encourage everyone to stick around because besides the information that we'll exchange through this very formal way, we will hope to meet one another because we are all members of the health law industry. And we'd like to meet one another and network afterwards as well. I'm going to turn this over to Kathleen Lyons. Kathleen Lyons has been my right-hand partner in working on this committee, and she has organized this panel discussion, and she's been my right hand in developing this health law fellowship that we are very proud of. Kathleen, thank you.
Thank you, Lisa. Thank you for that warm introduction. As Lisa mentioned, my name is Kathleen Lyons, and I'm currently employed at Swiss Re Insurance America Holding Corp. Like many of our panelists, I have a deep background in health law, and it led me to the reinsurance world. So at this point, I would like to start by having our panelists introduce themselves and tell you a little bit about their career path. And I will throw this to the end of the table with Mr. Robert Swidler.
Okay. Thank you, Kathleen. Thank you, Professor Porter, for inviting me, and for Brooklyn Law School and the bar for inviting me, and all of you for coming. I'm a little disoriented because Swidler, I usually go last, so I'm sure Danette has that problem too, but I'll try to bear up. I'm Vice President for Legal Services for St. Peter's Health Partners, a system none of you have probably ever heard of. But it's quite large. It's in Albany, centered in Albany, New York, and we are the largest provider of healthcare services in New York's capital region. We have 5 hospitals, 7 nursing homes, home care, assisted living, a PACE program, hospice program, a series of senior residences, a very large physician practice with about 350 doctors in it, and a bunch of other stuff, including some of the weird new population health joint ventures and clinically integrated networks we may talk about here. I think HHC is a little bit larger, but this is not the Republican debate, so we're probably not going to go into detail about which one's larger. But it's pretty close. We do about $1 billion of revenue a year and have 12,000 employees. It's also a complex system. It's not just a hospital. People think of, well, a healthcare system as a medical center with maybe something attached. That's not how things work now, and that also is affecting health law careers and making it more complex, increasing the need for legal services. And as I'll say over and over again, I think there's a lot of careers to be had, satisfying careers in the health law area, and the future is bright. There's a need for talented and dedicated and smart people in this field. Oh yeah, my career path. Okay, so 1 minute on that. I grew up in Stuyvesant Town across the river from here, and went to Columbia Law School, and worked at a law firm briefly, and was not crazy about working in a law firm, and was looking for another opportunity, and joined a state task force on medical ethics as its counsel, which was very fortuitous, and I was very lucky. Sometimes things are a matter of hard work and dedication, and sometimes opportunities just come up. I think I've had both in my career, some things I've earned and some things I didn't earn that just kind of fell my way, but you need to recognize opportunities and seize them. I worked on this terrific task force under Governor Mario Cuomo and Health Commissioner David Axelrod for 5 years, from 1985 to 1990. We helped develop New York's healthcare proxy law and brain death legislation, and laws on allocation of organs and other bioethic initiatives. Moved from there to Albany to work on Governor Mario Cuomo's staff for a few years on health issues, and then to the Office of Mental Health, and then shortly after that, took a job with a healthcare system in Albany that merged, and then merged again, and is now St. Peter's Health Partners. So been with St. Peter's Health Partners since it was formed in 2011, and it's very challenging. I like my job. It's stressful, but I still look forward to going to work in the morning, and I'm happy to sing the praises of a career in health law. Look forward to talking more with you.
Good evening, everyone. I am grateful to have been invited to speak with all of you this evening, and it's my hope that during this presentation and after the presentation that all of us will be able to give you some great ideas on how you and your unique interests are going to help you branch into a career in health law, which, as everyone who has spoken to you so far this evening has told you, is really a great and exciting field. There is no day that is the same, and which means that you'll be continuously learning and continuously engaged in your career. My name is Jeanette Slavinsky. I am the Compliance Officer and HIPAA Privacy Officer for NYU Lutheran of the NYU Langone Health System. And my day-to-day work includes everything from conducting investigations on alleged fraud, waste, and abuse, alleged violations of HIPAA privacy and security law, and a whole variety of other types of potential compliance issues. The compliance field is one where you can be expected to be either a jack of all trades or an issue spotter, which is something as law students we've all learned to do very well. So no 2 days are the same in my job. I also provide training and education. I think any compliance officer will tell you that the best compliance program is the one that keeps people out of trouble, keeps people aware of the roles, responsibilities that they have, and the code of ethics that their organization has, no matter what field, healthcare, real estate, aviation, no matter what field they're in. So training and education, investigations, and then risk assessment processes. I won't go into too much more detail because, as you can tell, although I started with a career in law practice, in health law, and in med mal defense, I branched out. I branched out into a related field. How I got to compliance, when I graduated from Brooklyn Law School in 2005, a student of Professor Porter's, and I was privileged to have the opportunity through her mentorship to have multiple internships where I got a chance to see what kind of health law subfield I was interested in. Upon graduation, I practiced in a health law field that did licensure defense and some corporate law and Medicaid and Medicare audits. So I was defending doctors in those types of situations. I also then practiced med mal defense and went back to a career in Medicaid and Medicare fraud investigations and licensure defense, and eventually realized that what I loved the most was trying to help people stay out of trouble. So I was offered the opportunity to transition to compliance, and I think that the point that Robert Swindler mentioned about taking advantage of not just the opportunities that your hard work is going to bring to you, but some of the less anticipated, the things that might fall into your lap, you might be in the right place at the right time. Well, you've got to be able to note those and take advantage of those too. And I think that is in large part how I was privileged to enter into a career compliance, which I also love being part of and doing every day. So I will pass the baton over to Professor Russo, another one of my mentors.
Thank you. I have so many. One thing about the health law bar, it's a very friendly bar, and it's a wonderful bar. Lisa was an intern of mine. I had 160 interns. One of my interns a couple of years ago wound up being chair of the health law section. I feel so proud of that. It's a wonderful bar. They're nice people. But let me start from the beginning. My name is Sal Russo, and I feel particularly privileged that the Bar Association and the law school has asked me to share some of my thoughts on health law and health law subjects. I'm Senior Vice President and General Counsel for NYC, we're rebranding, NYC Health and Hospitals. And let me just issue a little disclaimer. Any opinions that I give tonight or any legal interpretation are purely my own and do not necessarily reflect the positions of NYC Health and Hospital. That frees me up to talk. Let me tell you, first of all, I agree with what my colleagues have said. Let me give you a little background on NYC Health and Hospitals. NYC Health and Hospitals is composed of 11 acute care facilities, 5 long-term care facilities, 6 diagnostic and treatment centers. one federally qualified health center. We are the lead PPS, which stands for, PPS used to mean something else to us, but today it means, in this context, Performing Provider System, which we call One City Health, this is something that's on the front. It's all about transitioning to, as Rob mentioned, population health. We have, so we're the lead PPS. We also have an insurance company called Metro Plus, which has 480,000 enrollees. Besides being a Medicaid insurance company, we are also in the commercial insurance under the exchange, as well as a Medicare Advantage plan. That's a commercial. We have some, and anybody wanting to join, it's a wonderful product. We also have an ACO, that's an accountable care organization. We have an insurance captive to insure some of our doctors for malpractice. And the captive, unlike where most captives are in, either in the Cayman Islands or something, it's here in New York City. It's a New York State captive, so we don't get to go to exotic places. And finally, I'll tell you that we have approximately, and I've heard different numbers, but approximately 36,000 to 40,000 employees. We have 5,000 doctors, 8,000 registered nurses, and we have an $8 billion revenue budget. My career path is, when I started 35 years ago, there wasn't much of a practice called health law. In fact, I went to Hofstra Law School, where I started in first year with a great professor, Rabbi Twersky, who teaches here. He was my torts professor. And at that time, Dean Reagan, who was a health law and elder law professor, he taught 1 or 2 courses in the area. I never took them because at that time it wasn't a big area. And actually, the Task Force on Life and the Law, he was a member of the original group.
He was terrific, and he was really the person responsible, I think, for New York having a healthcare proxy law. I don't want to get off on a tangent, but the governor had asked us to look into whether New York needed a living will law, and he sold the task force on that's not a good idea. What you really need is this new idea, sort of like what they're doing in California at the time, and of a healthcare proxy, and was really the lead advocate for that, and a very nice man, too.
Yeah, he was a great guy.
Yeah.
And one of my biggest thrills was at the ABA, a guy interviewed me in an article that mentioned that he and I were both interviewed for, and I was so, in awe of that as a young health lawyer that I have it still in my office framed, where Professor Reagan, Dean Reagan, and I were in the same article. In any event, like my colleagues, my day is never the same, and it's a beautiful thing because you can never get bored. And one other thing, we all love what we're doing. I mean, it doesn't mean that every day we get up and it's, all roses, but we love, we get up and at the end of the day we feel that we've done something important. And what I wish for all of you, and my son is in this school, he's a second-year student, so I have a particular affiliation beside being a professor. And I told him not to come to this tonight because he's got class, and I didn't want him to skip class to come to this. That I wish for all of you and my children and all the students an avocation, not a job. And that's what you have to do. Follow your passion. Well, I don't want to drone on, and I want to pass on to my colleague Ingrid Jones here, who can go next, please.
Thank you, Professor Russo. Good evening, and thank you to everyone that put this program together. I think I would be considered the odd man out here in that I am the Assistant General Counsel for Compliance at the College Board. Those of you who are unfamiliar with the College Board, think of SAT, PSAT,
Right.
AP. The FAFSA, all of those things are what we do at the College Board. It is a nonprofit. It is a billion-dollar organization. Most people probably wouldn't gather that. As far as career path, healthcare, I've done healthcare for more than 10 or 12 years, and that's actually how I met Lisa. I worked for Health and Hospitals Corporation before I even went to law school. So I worked for the City of New York Health and Hospitals Corporation, and I went to law school while I was at Health and Hospitals Corporation. So anyone here that's going to night school or taking evening classes, I got you. I understand. Then from there, I worked, again, for the city for many, many years, doing contracts for the Health and Hospitals, the Youth Department, all of those things. However, the City of New York has this wonderful rule that if you want to live outside of the City of New York, you cannot work for the City of New York.
It subsequently changed.
Right, but you can only live in certain places. I live in New Jersey. So with that said, I moved on and I ended up working for corporations and honestly fell into healthcare law. A random headhunter called me and asked me would I be interested. And I worked for pharmaceutical companies for 7 to 10 years.
Wow.
Loved every minute of it. I worked for the pharma companies when compliance was becoming an industry. For those of you that are interested in compliance, not that I'm telling you to leave Brooklyn Law School, but Seton Hall has a great certification program. Just putting it out there. But
You can always get it afterwards.
yeah, you can. And so I have only been outside of healthcare for less than 3 years, and actually have a desire to go back into healthcare and believe that my experience in education will lead me in that direction. So I say that to say that every experience you have, either in law school or at an internship, will lead you to where you want to be. Take something from every experience.
Great, thank you all. I'd like to turn now to what's trending in health law. I'm sure a lot of you have taken perhaps the classic health law classes, think that health law jobs involve a lot of contract work, and while that may be true, there's a lot more going on in health law than just contracts and big law firms. And our panelists have already alluded to it, but I'm going to ask them to talk about what's trending, what they're seeing in their practice, what are the new things, and perhaps, make suggestions for classes that you may want to consider if you're looking at health law beyond just perhaps the traditional. So I'll start with Danette. Could you start us off?
Well, sure. And the answer to the question of what's trending in health law, I think depends on, in many ways, what your interests are. So what are the common words you hear? Every time you open up the paper, you listen to the news in the morning, you hear about a breach of private information or medical information. So cybersecurity and HIPAA privacy are definitely trending. You also often hear about potential cost savings from doing fraud, waste, and abuse investigations and saving money that way. But one of the big areas, and I'm going to leave this to some of the other panelists, would be population health. And but within each of these sub areas that are trending, the point I really want to make to you is that whatever your interests are, if you have a passion for law, but you're also interested in medical practice, or also are interested in ethics or research, pharmaceuticals, antitrust, elder law, whatever your other interests are, information security, if you love computers and programming, whatever your sub-interests are, there is probably a really great door available for you to open and walk through. So I've started generally, but I think that my co-panelists can probably dig in and put some meat on the structure of what I've started to share.
Sure. Well, I agree with all those areas that you see are trending. The three that I would mention, I spoke to a group that Professor Porter organized earlier, and I mentioned these as well. One is consolidations continues to be a big area in health law, which means there are fewer and fewer standalone hospitals, standalone nursing homes, standalone physician practices. They are all scrambling for cover. There's a lot of things that are driving that. The complexity of compliance is one of those things, reimbursement pressures and other forces. But as a result of that, lawyers are needed for an enormous amount of healthcare transactional work, for hospital mergers, acquisitions of physician practices, the creation of new entities, joint ventures, and that involves corporate work, but corporate work with knowledge of not-for-profit principles, tax-exempt principles, and health law principles. So, and I find I'm doing a lot of my time as a corporate lawyer, which I never expected. So that's one area. Another area that Danette mentioned is population health. What is that? I mean, it's kind of vague and abstract even to those of us in the practice, but government, the state and federal government in particular, are really pushing us very hard with carrots and sticks to stop being even standalone systems, to partner with people outside of our systems to create clinically integrated networks that include all the kinds of care that a patient would need, from the hospital to the pharmacy to the physician practice to the home care agency, and then figure out a way to share information together about a patient and then pay the clinically integrated network and wash their hands about how that money is divided within the clinically integrated network. I'm finding government is really pushing this, but not very prescriptive about the kinds of structures that they are requiring. So we are out there trying to make up all kinds of weird new entities. So you have this PPS called, what's it called?
One City Health.
Yeah, and we have Alliance for Better Healthcare, which is a Medicaid PPS performing provider system, and another entity in the Medicare and commercial area, an ACO. So there's all these, alphabet soup and acronyms out there that I've never heard of before and would have a hard time even defining now. They all need lawyers. We're creating new entities. We're creating new agreements. We are learning the application of how does HIPAA apply to these things? How does the Stark Law apply to these things? How does antitrust apply to these things? It's very legal advice intensive and requires people who are able to think, deal with complexity. So that's the second area. The third area is not new, but it is compliance. The stakes in compliance keep getting higher and higher. The complexity of compliance keeps getting greater and greater. The reliance upon attorneys and other non-attorneys for guidance and oversight in the compliance area keeps growing. So that is a field that there's a lot of jobs in, and I see that as continuing to grow. And I also see it as an area where people who may be interested in compliance and can make a very satisfying career in, and other people may find a job in it and find that there are other areas that they're attracted to, but gain a lot of experience in health law while doing compliance work. So I think those are the areas that I would say are trending.
I think,
Sure.
I
Go
think
ahead.
I'll add to that, for those of you that still have time to take a number of classes, understand how to read a statute. That is useful. Regardless of what you do, it is useful, regardless of the industry you're in. Understand data security, understand data privacy. In the pharmaceutical industry, drug pricing. That's an area that there is a big gap. I had someone call me the other day looking for an attorney that understood drug pricing. It's very difficult. So take the time, if you can take a class, if you can meet someone in the pharma company and just go ask them questions. That is something that is very useful. Understand how to do an investigation. I'm assuming there's some level of investigation class that is here. If not, hopefully someone will make one. But that's also useful. I'm an advocate of taking classes that transcend industry, because as your career goes on, you may be in one industry for a moment and step out, but you still need the skill set of knowing how to read a statute. Very, very important.
Well, let me say a few things at the outset. First of all, about maybe 15 years ago, I wrote an article called, by the way, that Rob Zwidler has been for I don't know how many years the editor of the Health Law Journal for the State Bar Association, and has done a great job in that regard. And I wrote an article for that journal maybe about 15 years ago, which was entitled, "All right, Mr. DeMille, I'm ready for my close-up, a health lawyer's guide to negotiating TV and film contracts." Now, in that article, I start off saying, well, what is a healthcare lawyer? Healthcare lawyer, when you think of a healthcare lawyer, you think of certain things. Well, it's pretty broad, and the skills that you would need, as my colleague was saying, transcends the industry. Because in the genesis of writing that article was the fact that I had to negotiate with some TV entities for a sort of reality show type of entertainment. And never did I think when I entered health law that I'd be doing that. So what is a health lawyer? Well, you know, it's a broad spectrum of things. You have everything from people who represent people in malpractice claims. They're considered health lawyers. You have pharmaceutical. You have compliance. You have people who are legislative consultants who specialize in that area. So, you know, health law is enough of a specialty in that it has certain laws that are idiosyncratic to it, but at the same time, you're still involved with the other areas of law with a different twist and a different looking at it. So health law as a subject encompasses a whole bunch of people in the insurance industry. So, you know, that's a pretty broad term. Now, so what I'm saying to you, there's a lot of opportunities in health law, and it may not be just being a counsel for a hospital or a counsel for a pharmaceutical entity. There are trade associations, a whole bunch of areas. So it's a pretty broad spectrum. Now, to get to the question of the day here, what's particularly trending? Well, you know, the United States spends the most money per capita for health care. It's number one. And that, you know, I believe it was the, I think it was the community fund, wealth fund, Commonwealth Fund that said that a few years ago. We're number one in spending. We're number 38 in the world in terms of outcomes in healthcare. There's something wrong here. And what government's trying to do and what people are trying to figure out, and this goes into the trending stuff, is what are we doing wrong and how can we retool the healthcare system so that the money we spend results in outcomes for better population health. So right now in New York State, we are engaging in a demonstration project for the next 5 years called DSRIP. And it's, now correct me if I'm wrong on the acronym, Delivery System Reform Incentive Program. I got it?
Sounds right to me.
All right, we've got so many acronyms. For the next 5 years, we're under, and the purpose of that is to enhance population health by figuring out a way in which we can restructure the financing of healthcare to deliver better healthcare. Remember, you know, in the movie about Watergate, they said, follow the money. And money is the way you affect policy. So now the state of New York, in cooperation with the federal government, is engaging in a demonstration project to see how we align the money to get better outcomes. So the waiver and DSRIP and all the permutations of that is a hot topic. And the ACOs, the Accountable Care Organization, which is one of the developments from the Accountable Care Act, is another thing. It's a short-term thing, but it is a way of trying to figure out how to provide care to the most expensive Medicare patients and how to provide effective care. So, and privacy and compliance. These are all hot topics because the idea is in this technological age, you want to be able to communicate information about a person's health in a very rapid way, but you want to be mindful of the confidentiality protections that date back to, you know, the Hippocratic Oath. Okay.
Great, thank you very much. I think we can see from our panelists that healthcare law is really not a very small box, that you could really think outside the box and segue into it with a lot of different kinds of experience. So I'd like to turn now to, I guess, the main question of the night. How do you get a job in healthcare? And we happen to have 4 experts here. You've heard a little bit about their career paths, but I'm going to ask them to provide some practical, advice, things that they've learned along the way, and things that will help you as you're considering a job in this area of law. So I guess I will start out by asking our panelists who have interviewed probably many times. You know, what questions do you ask during an interview? What are you looking for when you interview people, potential job?
The number one question I've either received or gotten was, why do you want to work here? You need to know, and that's any industry, you need to know why you want to do healthcare law. Oh, I just want to earn money at a pharma company is not going to work for you. But just know about the company and do the research of who you are interviewing. Read their bio. Don't just read it. Google some of the things that they've done. Whether that's they worked at whatever the hospital is, find out what's going on at that hospital. That might be a conversation piece, because you want your interview to be a conversation, not just a number of questions and then you're not memorable. At the end of the day, you want that person to remember you, and a good conversation with that person will do that.
One other characteristic in a candidate, of course, you know, you're looking at a resume, you're looking at someone showing interest in the field that they're seeking employment in. But adaptability, I think one of the things you've heard from all of us is that the healthcare field, whether you're working in government, general counsel, whether you're working for a pharmaceutical company, or an insurance company, no matter what you do, every day brings a new challenge. So think about being a general counsel in a hospital system and being asked if an app on a patient's phone if there are liability issues, if that app transmits data about weight or glucose tests or things like that. You have to be able to adapt to things that change. Google Glass, what if a physician's wearing it? And what if the physician is dictating information that is then being transcribed by a company in another country? What are the issues that are presented? And I think what the government and what your employers and what your colleagues are not going to want to hear is no, or why something can't happen. And sometimes that's going to be your answer, but they're looking for what options are available and what are the challenges and what are the barriers. So no matter what level you're employing or seeking a candidate for, you're looking for adaptability, you're looking for passion and interest, but you're really looking for someone who's a critical thinker and who can talk through how they would adapt to a new question or a new challenge or a new problem, because that is the nature of health law. It changes every day.
All right, you've got to get through the door first. And the way you do that is you're going to be sending a resume or a CV to an employer, a prospective employer. You've got to distinguish yourself. You've got to distinguish yourself in what ways, you say? Well, if you tell me you want to be a health lawyer, I want to know, what have you done while you were in law school to further that interest? Did you do internships, externships? One of the things, I mean, we all can't be on law review, the way I understand it, and I wasn't on law review, but you can always write an article which can get published in the Health Law Journal. You know,
Well, we don't accept everything, Sal.
No,
but-
no. I mean, a quality article. Yeah, no, it's true. But I mean, you can write something of a good quality, and you don't have to be on law review to submit an article, and it could be reviewed. It doesn't have to be the Health Law Journal. It can be some other publication. Distinguish yourself. Show that you have an interest, and make the person who is the reader of your resume say, oh, this person's interested. This person has a passion. Now, you're all smart. So whether you have a 3.6, 3.4, 3.3, you're all smart. The difference is there the passion? Is there the interest? Is there the hard work? As an employer, what I want is dedication, hard work, critical analysis. I want somebody who I feel likes to go to work, wants to be a team player, has a bit of, wanting to move on, wants to work hard, and wants to learn. If you're just going to get in there and you're looking for a job and you're not excited about it, well, I'm not going to be excited about you. So you have to you have to get in the door first.
Right.
So you have to make your resume stand out. And then in your cover letter, how many times I've had people come, they haven't done a Google search. They don't know what I've done. Well, we all have a bit of an ego, and you say, I understand you did this, and can you tell me something? Now, also important, and I want to give somebody else a chance to say something, networking. Belong to the State Bar Association. Doesn't cost much. As students, network. I network. I'm not looking for another job, but I always network. Why do I network? Because one day, one of my colleagues might be on the other side of a deal. And I want to be able to say, I know them, I have their card, I've spoken to them. These are all important lawyering skills. That doesn't necessarily mean you're on law review. It means you got to have people skills as well. So, network, learn, get involved, distinguish yourself in some way in your resume so it doesn't get tossed on the side. Now, of course, the person who's number one in a class that expresses an interest is always going to get probably always going to get an interview because you're curious and they're very bright. But you don't have to be. You can be in the middle of the class, but you show the interest, you have the smarts, and you've backed up your genuine concern in that area. And that's what it's all about. And I've seen some people really climb high based on that because there's no substitute for hard work.
Right.
Well, I agree with all that, and with the other speakers. I was nodding my head during every one of those comments. One word about writing that I also strongly want to second. I think you stole my thunder a little bit. I was going to emphasize that too. If you really are interested in health law, if you write something and get it published, even in just a trade journal, even just a 2-page article, that does several things for an employer, or at least for me. That shows me your interest is genuine. That shows me you can write. If I could read your article and it's well written, that shows me you could write, which is an incredibly important and essential skill. And lastly, if you're picking a topic that is of interest to a prospective employer, oh my goodness, that is the trifecta there. If we are working on specific issues about population health and you wrote on population health, this person's demonstrated their interest, they've demonstrated their writing ability, and they've demonstrated their expertise on an area where I need expertise. So find some opportunity to write. It can really benefit you and distinguish you over the other person who's got grades as good or even better than yours who hasn't done that.
And
Also helps generate articles for my journals.
and not to take any thunder
No, go
away
ahead.
from the NYSBA Health Law Journal, but there are journals in all of these sub areas too: population health, antitrust, compliance. And so, yes, there's probably a strong benefit to sticking to an organization and a journal that's very legally based, but there are a lot of opportunities out there, and it absolutely shows an interest.
Right. Law reviews are very impressive, but I don't think that that's necessary. And it shows a scholarly ability that can again be very impressive, but I don't think that's necessary to make the point I'm suggesting. But let me turn to interviews for a minute. So on the happy occasions when I've been able to hire and add to my staff, sometimes it's not happy occasion because it means somebody left.
Right.
But on the happy occasions when I have to interview and add someone to my staff, I've already screened them through their resumes to somebody who I think is qualified to take this job. And I guess I want to come back to that also. So I think all of us tend to want to look for somebody who's got a couple of years' experience out there, which is disadvantageous to new graduates. I realize that, and maybe we'll come back to that. Mm-hmm. But a couple of years after you graduate, you're going to be that person with a couple of years' experience, and then I'll snap you up. I was thinking about the question that Kathleen asked about what questions I ask, and I realized I never plan my questions. I don't have any standard questions. And I'm embarrassed to say it, but I almost think of it as like a date. I kind of want to meet this person and see if we get along, and then see if they seem bright and interesting and intelligent and pleasant to be with. And is it somebody who I don't want to marry them and spend my life with them, but I am going to potentially be stuck in a small, tense place with them for a long time, and want to see that they're congenial, that we are compatible. I also want to see that they can speak intelligently about some substantive topic, but I'm not testing them. I find what I usually do, maybe it's laziness on my part to not prepare a strict interview, but I just got their resume and I see, I see you did this graduate paper on democracy and pirate ships in the Caribbean. What made you do that? And if that leads to a good conversation about it, I leave with a favorable impression of that person. This is somebody intelligent, resourceful. One other thing about something that really, what's the opposite of impress? Depress, unimpress, that irks me is somebody who's really like focused on the benefits, the compensation, the other issues. Yeah, those are important and you got to assert yourself, but not in your job interview. Don't start asking me about paid time off policies. One, I don't know them, and two, that just shows me that your focus is on what we can do for you, not what you can do for us. A couple of thoughts.
I'll add this to what Professor Russo said. If you don't have a LinkedIn account, you should. I know that there's all these other things out there. I got younger kids that do all the internet stuff,
And be careful what you put on the
Right.
internet.
be careful what you put on. But also through LinkedIn, you can meet a number of people, and you can inbox them and not ask them for a job. This goes to networking, but ask them, can you come and have a conversation with them about what they do?
That is so on point, because if you start and you come to somebody and you say, I want to talk to you about getting a job or position with you.
Right.
The answer is, I don't have a position, so that's the end of the conversation.
Right.
You don't do that.
Right.
You want to meet them. Now, they may not have a job for
Right.
you, but you may impress them,
Right.
and they will remember to refer you to somebody else.
Right.
So don't start off. You want to talk to them. You want to learn about that field. You want to learn from them.
Right.
You've heard a lot.
Right. And so that comment you made about they may remember you, I'll say this little story and then move on, in that when I ended up at Pfizer, it was not because I put in an application at Pfizer. I was being laid off from another pharmaceutical company. A headhunter called me, and the job was not for me. It was a substantial pay cut, and I wasn't willing to do that. But that headhunter needed people. So I referred that headhunter to a number of people that they could then use, interview, and then hire. 3 months later, literally driving down the highway, my phone rings, and it's the head of HR for Pfizer, and they said, someone referred you to us. And it was because of that conversation and the reference I gave to someone else. So while you're doing all that you do, remember to be kind to others. It seems silly, but it honestly will open the door for
Good
you.
karma.
Yeah, can I add a point about that? It ties into both what Ingrid and Sal were saying. Get out there and circulate. That's incredibly important. Go to events, on health law events if you're interested in health law. Not only it's the substantive point of it, but meeting people, making those connections without necessarily any expectation of some immediate fruit from that. But over a course of time, meeting the other people in this field, impressing them, getting to know them, really unexpected opportunities crop up, and very often through those kind of activities.
Right.
Staying at home and just looking in the computer is not going to do that.
No.
So a plug for the Bar Association. Join the State Bar Association. If you're interested in health law, join the health law section. It doesn't cost much, if anything, in terms of, I think it's $5, and I don't even know if the membership... Oh, you got... Well, one thing, you can never do too many commercials. So, and there are various bars association besides the state. There's specialty bars.
Right.
There's the city bar, which used to be called the Association of the City of New York, Bar Association of the City of New York. In any event, do all these things. You got to get out there. You got to meet the people. And I want to, what my colleague said, one of the things that I'm looking for, I've got to have somebody in my office that works with my team. And if I have somebody who I feel is going to be off and not go with the crowd here in terms of working together, and is a difficult personality, I don't care how bright they are, it's going to be disruptive.
Right.
And so you want people who feel good about working for the organization. That's important too. So chemistry is very important. And I underscore what Robert is saying.
I guess just to follow up on that, I mean, we've alluded to it a little bit, but, building relationships, perhaps we can have the panelists talk about, a relationship that either was formed with someone, in the area of law they wanted to go into, or perhaps someone they met who was looking to get into their area of law.
Repeat the question.
Oh. We've talked a little bit about relationships and how important they are, and how networking is not just going and getting names and perhaps getting business cards, but the thrust of networking is to really develop the relationship. And as panelists have talked about, they've come back to people that they have formed a relationship with. They follow them throughout their career. And I guess I'd ask the panelists to maybe give some advice and perhaps some examples of how this works for them in their career.
Well, I'll mention two things. I mean, one personal experience, working on the task force on life and the law, I had to deal a lot with people from Albany, and the assistant counsel to the governor, Hermes Fernandez, is also very active in the state bar, came to me and said, I'm leaving for another job, and I suggested you as somebody who might want to work on the governor's staff on health law issues. Would you like to come to Albany? That was a huge change for me to move out of New York City and go up there with my family and a small child, but we had been thinking of a change, and we did that, and it's led to I think a very satisfying career, a different life in Albany than what I anticipated. But that's one of those things of being out there, making connections, not in necessarily a deliberate way, but just being out there. I think there was another point I was going to make, and I lost it, so I will pass that along.
One example I had was an internship that I got through a student at Brooklyn Law School, and I don't remember if it was through Professor Porter's help in identifying this organization, but I did a summer associate position with a nonprofit law firm called New York Legal Assistance Group, and my mentor there, Randy Bretkin, we've continued to stay in touch throughout the years. Sometimes we've not talked in 4 years, sometimes we've continued to talk, and so through the years as I've developed my career, I don't know that, I don't know that she's helped me get a job, but she's helped me as a mentor understand how to change, how to develop as a leader. And we actually co-teach now at another law school, so I guess she did help me get a job. But it's the kind of thing where also she's been able to introduce me to others, introduce me to experiences such as joining panels that are developing speaker engagements in this case, compliance. So there's so many ways to network, volunteering to help. So until you're established, you won't necessarily be sought out to be the speaker, to be someone who has a network so that you can find or identify speakers at an engagement. But even things like planning and development committees, being on a panel that reviews articles or helps select them. So think outside of the box. But networking, as you meet people and you develop those relationships, nurture them and continue to reach out at least once a year. Every month I try to make sure to call 5 or so people from my LinkedIn account. I just scroll through A through Z and just say hello and keep in touch. And it's surprising some of the things that I learn in those conversations. So even these informal things, and try to develop a process or procedure. I don't want to make it too analytical, but something like remembering to call these people in your network so that you keep those relationships alive.
I do remember the other point I was going to make, and it's somewhat related to that. This is more of a life lesson than a health law lesson. But if you look around this room here, I mean, everybody is important, but some of you are going to be really important. It's going to be unexpected who it is.
Which are all important to your mothers.
Yeah. It's going to be surprising and unexpected who it is. So maybe this is just like, be nice to people kind of lecture. But it is amazing to me in my career how many people I knew who had some middle level or lower level job who ended up as counsel to some big organization or some commissioner or important political figure or big successful businessman. And you really have to be aware of just building a whole career of being on good terms with people. That's incredibly important. I don't want it to be just a tactical decision. It's better to be a nice person because you want to be a nice person, but it's also tactically helpful.
Well, I'm always good to my interns because I always figure one day they may hire me for something. So, I mean, that's the way you have to look at it.
Yeah, we want to be nice to these people because
That's right.
you never know.
Absolutely. So it is important. I've been with NYC Health and Hospitals for 31 years. But I've had 3 major job opportunities during the course of that. One I took up, which I didn't care for, and came back to NYC Health and Hospitals because of a certain political situation that was going on at the institution that I was at. But I started off, by the way, at Greater New York Hospital Association, which was a wonderful way to start. I was Director of Legal Affairs, and it gave me an industry-wide view on healthcare that was just great. And I used my contacts there and kept my contacts and increased my contacts over the years. And so 3 times in my career, most recently it was about 5.5 years ago, that I was offered double my salary to go to another system. And I was teeter-tottering because at that time I knew I was going to have 3 kids going through college at some point, and 1 eventually to law school. And I said, while I loved my job, and I was, relatively recently appointed the general counsel, I said, I have a financial situation here which double a salary at that level is pretty good. So I talked to my wife, and my beloved wife of 35 years, and she said, do what your heart feels. And I spoke with my children. They weren't babies. They were, young men, but not quite in college at that point. 2 of my sons said, Dad, you love your job. Stay with it. Don't change. One of my sons, who wants to be the businessman, he's a junior in college, said, what are you, crazy? Double your salary? And for 2 weeks, he didn't want to talk to me because he was planning the car I was eventually going to buy him, and the fact that he would be really comfortable in college. But in any event, I went with my heart, and it was the right thing to do. My position has politics with a capital P, meaning, City Hall and the mayor, and with a small p, we're a corporation with a board of directors, and also you have executives that have their own agendas too. So there's that, normal corporate type of politics. But the lesson here is you've got to be nice to everybody. You got to do what your heart feels. You temper it with a little bit of common sense. But as long as you can make the bills, have a roof over your head, take a vacation, and you're happy, you won't be spending it on psychiatric care.
I'll add this to that. Networking goes both ways. Don't just be for what you can get out of it. Lisa and I met, I believe, over LinkedIn. she sent me a note and asked me a question. And we've had a relationship literally ever since, whether she switched jobs or I've switched jobs. And that's why I said LinkedIn does work. So I'm not plugging, I'm not doing the commercial for LinkedIn. I'm just saying to you, when you reach out to people with a question and not ask for something, that may work out for you. What else would I say about networking? You can do it anywhere. You can do it in a grocery store. Don't just assume that networking
that's right.
is in a traditional
Absolutely.
form of networking. And you would be surprised that I have a friend that sings in a choir. I had no idea she knew the president of a pharmaceutical company. So, and those are the kind of, again, be kind to everyone, but be aware that the way you present yourself, whether it's in the elevator or whether it's in moot court, does matter. The way you present yourself on, and I know that everyone has heard this, on the internet matters. Because when you go for that job interview, they're going to Google you.
Great. I want to thank all of our panelists. And as we wind up, I'm going to have each panelist kind of give one final takeaway that hopefully you can take with you, remember, and use in your career as you go forward. After that, we'll have a few minutes for questions, then we will break for networking. I believe there's some refreshments in the back. So I'll start, as I started in the beginning, I'll throw the baton to Mr. Swidler and have him give us a quick takeaway.
Sure. Well, I congratulate you for your interest in this field. I think this is a growing field. It needs lawyers. It needs bright young lawyers. And I have nothing but encouragement for you in this field. I do think, I mentioned earlier, the first job, I wouldn't put too much pressure on what your first job is. It'd be great if you find a great job as your first job. Most people don't. I did not. What you need to do is take a job, get a paycheck if this is what you're interested in. At that point, now you're collecting a paycheck. Now do some writing in health law, do some networking in health law, do some professional education in health law, and take your time. Opportunities will pass. I was saying the other day, it's like I was a round peg and just kept hitting square holes and then finally hit a round hole. So you just got to be out there, collect your paycheck, don't put too much pressure on that first job, and stay with it. That commitment will show.
So my takeaway is nurture what you love and trust your gut. So like I said in the beginning of this discussion, whatever your passion is, what other than law, not just law, nurture that. And in health law, let that be your gateway. It will come through in interviews, it will come through in your writing, and as you've heard tonight, health law is such a diverse field. You will have opportunities to explore what you love, and trust your gut. As opportunities come, yes, get that first job, start collecting your paycheck, give yourself some time to start developing your network and write and become involved in committees. But trust your gut. Just taking a career opportunity because it's an increase of salary doesn't mean it's right for your trajectory. So give yourself that time to pause and say, is this the right next step? Because employers also do look to see, are you committed to the organization and are you passionate about what you do? And the best of luck to you. I'm really excited for all of you.
I would say don't be afraid, be courageous. Don't fear making a mistake. That's a mistake. I would say that you should be persistent. You should dedicate some time during the week for your professional development and thinking of your strategy of how you're going to approach getting to where you want to go. Have a long-term a goal. Have a plan to get to it, but don't think that that's the only way you're going to get to it. And be flexible about changing it. And at the end of the day, things work out fine. My philosophy in life is like, we're an electron. You don't know exactly where that electron's going to be. You have zones of probability. You create the zones of probability, and then you need the luck for it to happen at the time, and you have to be ready for that opportunity. So don't be afraid to make mistakes and network.
My takeaway would be two things, maybe more than two. Don't be afraid to take a non-traditional position. Don't marry yourself to having the title of attorney, because you can be in compliance and not need a legal degree. That's still legal work. So don't be married to the idea of, I have to have this title. Remember that your career is a journey, not a destination. I think that's what Professor Russo was alluding to, that think of it as a long-term event. I don't really watch football, but I know it's long-term, so think of it that way. And then I would just give you a few places that you can consider outside of the traditional careers. Consider the Center for Medicare and Medicaid Services. Consider medical schools. Consider healthcare and research organization, associations. The Greater New York Hospital Association is in New York City. They're a really good organization, so something.
I started there.
Yeah, something to consider. CVS, Walgreens, Walmart, all have pharmacies, so all things to consider.
Payers, too.
Payers,
Right.
Hire
right.
lots of health lawyers
Yep.
and lobbying firms increasingly.
Lobbying, compliance officer,
Unions, welfare funds.
right.
The government.
The government, all of these things are options for you. And then even within healthcare, becoming a diversity officer, becoming a compliance officer, corporate responsibility. Every large pharmaceutical company has a corporate responsibilities arm. So those are all in healthcare, but it's the non-traditional way to get there. So that would be my advice.
Okay, thank you. We have a few minutes for questions, so if anybody has questions. Okay. Lisa, did you want to say?
Wait, we have questions.
Oh, I'm sorry.
And
I
don't be
apologize.
shy.
I apologize.
This is your time to ask questions.
Yes.
Ask.
I am a graduate of Brooklyn Law School, and what you've all said is really very, very helpful. There are some of us here who are medical malpractice defense lawyers, and
I'm glad to hear your defense.
and from what I've heard, it seems as though there are a lot of opportunities in other areas. And if someone were looking to make that transition, what are some of the things you'd be looking for aside from writing articles, joining organizations? What kind of things do you look for when if a resume from a litigator comes across your desk?
Well, there's always room for a good lawyer. People say, oh, there's too many lawyers. My answer is, there's always room for another good lawyer. You, as a litigator, are going to have certain skills that are going to be helpful. And by the way, as a general counsel, I was never a litigator, but I have to know about litigation because we have a substantial area of potential liability. I have about 30 lawyers that do claims and litigation in my office, and we retain about 9 law firms that help us in malpractice. Many times, for example, in 2 occasions, I've had lawyers who were in our claims and litigation office who did very well and said, I want to come into the in-house counsel sort of position. And we've been quite successful. You know why? They were good lawyers. They had good judgment. They knew how to assess risk. They can read statutes and regulations. And they fit in good in the office, and they were good at what they did, and people said, their ability to move on to a different subject is good. I think you've got to demonstrate that you have good skills, that you're a good lawyer, and that you're willing to learn, and that you're willing, and that you're starting to do what you need to do to be prepared for it.
No, I would second that. I think a resume from a medical malpractice defense attorney could be a very strong resume. And if we are working on non-litigation regulatory issues in my office, this is somebody who I'd want to talk to them about, well, what kinds of cases have you handled? And if it'd be particularly helpful to know if they've dealt with in the courts the kind of issues we're dealing with in the office. And I could see that as a very strong resume. So I'd encourage you to look into and I'd also want to know, are you looking at this as a career change to get out of litigation, or are you planning on bringing those skills here?
And there's nothing wrong about wanting to get out of litigation.
Yeah, I wanted to get
So
out of
I would
litigation.
agree with that. I think that question, the last question that was asked, if are you looking to get out of litigation, is something you may need to answer for yourself, because my suggestion was going to be in the pharma realm, there are always opportunities for litigation and investigation. And your background would fit perfectly there. And between New York and New Jersey, I could rattle off 10 pharmaceutical companies that are looking for litigation attorneys.
And the one other thing that I would add is, and it's not just for the question you've posed, but anyone looking to make a switch, and even for students just graduating from law school, you need a bridge to get you to where you want to be. And that bridge, quite simply, but difficultly, is, that networking component, and also being able to tailor and show an interest and a passion. You have to be able to have your resume looked at. And as Professor Russo said, you don't want it to be the one that's pushed away. So how you make that bridge, how you build that bridge, is through networking and also through being able to demonstrate an interest in that specific area of health law you're looking to transition to.
I would just say this in addition. We're in Brooklyn Hospital. The woman who's the general counsel there used to be at a defense firm for malpractice, and she's been the in-house general counsel there for a number of years. She made the transition over, and she was a good lawyer in a malpractice defense firm. So there are opportunities that way, and you got to look for them.
But I'm noticing that on this panel, we all work in corporations.
Yes.
Well, not-for-profit, and yours for-profit, right?
No.
Yeah.
It's
So
NYU.
For
It's
not-for-profit.
Doesn't mean you can't make a profit.
Yeah, I'm sorry. All not-for-profit corporations. So you're getting.
Brooklyn Law
what's
School,
remarkable
not-for-profit.
is I don't
Could
even
make
think
a
when we.
profit.
I don't even think when we were talking about the opportunities in different types of jobs, I don't even think we mentioned law firms or academia.
Right.
But
Right.
in
Right.
law firms, I was just thinking, we use an outside law firm that we have on retainer for a lot of issues in our system. They have a couple of lawyers there who are really talented utility fielders. They both give us business advice, handle regulatory matters, and go into court for us on civil litigation matters. So that's great to have that skill. Nobody in our house has that skill, but we use outside attorneys that have that skill.
I am going to give you the last word. And because I would love for everyone to get an opportunity to meet or speak with the panel individually. And the food is beginning to smell wonderful. So I just want to take this time, first and foremost, to thank Kathleen Lyons, who organized and facilitated this panel discussion. Robert Swidler, Danette Slavinsky, Professor Salvatore Russo, who was my first mentor in health law when I was a student at Fordham Law School. Thank you. And you just, he's the gift that keeps on giving, absolutely. And Ingrid Green Jones, who I am glad to say shared with you how she and I met, and it is a very good opportunity, it's a very good means to meet people that you don't know, that you're just kind of pulling out of the sky, and you do have to be courageous and think outside the box. Thank you, each and every one of you, and I would be remiss if I did not have a closing commercial. All right. How many of you here are law students? Raise your hands. There is a program at the New York State Bar Association called Pathway to the Profession, and that will provide you with a free membership, and you become an automatic member of the Young Lawyers section, which is a great section. There are people here from the Young Lawyers section? Yeah, right. Great. So please get one of these, and you can sign up and log in and sign up, and you receive one section for free, and we hope that will be the health law section. And those of you who are not students, there are also applications for the New York State Bar Association if you are not already a member, and you can just check the box for the health law section. Thank you all very much for coming. And lastly, thank you again, Karen Porter, for the center. She also sets the tone and really sets the tone for encouraging us to do more and to be better in this career choice of ours. Thank you again.